The scratching at Marcus Reed's cabin door came at 11:47 p.m., weak and desperate, like claws scraping wood, when the strength behind them was fading. The 35-year-old Navy SEAL veteran, still wearing his green and brown digital camo uniform from earlier that day, almost didn't answer. Then he heard it, a whimper so broken it bypassed his brain and went straight to the part of him that was still a warrior, still a medic, still someone who ran towards suffering instead of away from it. When Marcus yanked open the door, a full-grown German shepherd collapsed across his threshold. Traditional tan and black coat matted with blood and ice, amber eyes pleading with an intelligence that shattered every wall Marcus had built around his heart. If this story moves you, please subscribe to this channel and stay until the very end. Comment below what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story of loyalty and redemption can travel. Now, let's begin. Marcus had been staring at the cabin's ceiling for 3 hours when the scratching started. The sleeping pills the VA prescribed weren't working. They never worked anymore. At first, he told himself it was the wind. Colorado blizzards in February had a way of making sounds that didn't exist, playing tricks on minds that already played enough tricks on themselves. But the sound came again, deliberate, weakening, desperate. "Don't," Marcus whispered to the empty darkness, his voice rough and damaged. 6 months ago, smoke inhalation during the ambush had scarred his vocal cords. Now every word came out like gravel. "Don't you dare." The scratching stopped. For one moment, Marcus felt relief flood through him, cold and bitter as the wind howling outside his cabin walls. Then he heard the whimper. It was low, rough, the sound a throat makes after it screamed itself raw. The sound of something dying. Marcus's hands started shaking as he swung his legs off the bed. They always shook now. The military doctors called it a tremor, wrote it down in his discharge papers under service-connected disabilities. Marcus called it what it really was: fear that had burrowed so deep into his nervous system it had become part of his skeleton, part of his DNA. He stood up, still wearing the NWU Type 3 uniform he'd put on that morning out of habit. Green and brown digital camo that used to mean something, used to mean purpose, mission, brothers who had your back. Now it was just clothing he couldn't bring himself to stop wearing. Marcus crossed the small cabin in 6 steps. His hand touched the door latch and stopped. Logic said no animal would be stupid enough to approach a cabin in a blizzard. Experience said desperation makes fools of all creatures, human and otherwise. He yanked the door open. The wind hit him like a physical blow, sharp with ice and fury. Snow swirled into the cabin, stinging his face, but Marcus barely registered it. His eyes had locked onto the shape collapsing across his threshold. Not falling, not stumbling, collapsing, with the absolute finality of something that had just used every last ounce of strength to reach this exact spot. A German shepherd. Full-grown, maybe 85 pounds. Traditional working dog coloring. Rich tan and black coat, though the blood made it hard to tell where the natural darkness ended and the wounds began. "No," Marcus said. The word scraped out of his throat like broken glass. "No, no, no." But even as he said it, he was already moving, already assessing, already slipping into combat medic mode, because that's what 6 years in the teams had drilled into him. See casualty. Treat casualty. Ask questions later. The dog's eyes opened. Amber, clear, despite the pain. They fixed on Marcus with an intensity that stopped his breath in his chest. Titan had looked at him like that, right before the IED detonated. Right before Marcus's world exploded into fire and screaming and the smell of burning flesh. Right before his best friend, his canine partner, his brother in fur, threw himself between Marcus and the blast, and paid for that loyalty with his life. "I can't," Marcus told the bleeding dog on his porch. His hands were shaking so hard he had to clench them into fists. "I can't do this again. I can't lose." The dog's tail moved, just once. A weak thump against the snow-covered wood that somehow communicated an entire conversation. "I know this is hard. I know you're scared. But I'm dying out here, and you're all I've got." Something cracked inside Marcus's chest. Not breaking. He'd been broken for 6 months, shattered into so many pieces he'd stopped trying to put himself back together. This was different. This was the sound of a door he'd welded shut with grief and guilt, starting to creak open, despite every chain and padlock he'd put on it. "Damn it," Marcus whispered. He grabbed the dog under the shoulders and dragged him inside. The shepherd was dead weight, heavy in the way that meant shock, blood loss, system shutdown. Marcus's combat medic training started screaming warnings: hypothermia, penetrating trauma, imminent cardiovascular collapse. He laid the dog on the rug in front of his wood stove. The heat would help, but heat alone wouldn't save a life this far gone. Marcus's hands moved on autopilot now, muscle memory taking over where conscious thought failed. He'd done this before. In the back of helicopters with rotors screaming overhead. In blown-out buildings with gunfire echoing off concrete walls. In the Afghan sand while mortars fell like angry rain and his teammates bled out faster than he could work. He grabbed his medical kit, the civilian one he kept stocked because some habits outlived the men who formed them. "Stay with me," Marcus muttered, grabbing scissors and cutting through the dog's matted, blood-crusted fur. "Come on, buddy. Stay with me." The dog's breathing was shallow, rapid. Textbook shock. Marcus worked faster, his shaking hands steadying the moment they had purpose, the moment they had a mission. Then he found it. A bullet wound. Left shoulder. Entry wound, clean and round. No exit wound. The bullet was still inside. Marcus sat back on his heels, his mind trying to process what his eyes were seeing. This wasn't a hunting accident. This wasn't a territorial dispute with another dog or a wildlife encounter gone wrong. Someone had shot this dog. Deliberately. With what looked like a 9mm handgun based on the wound channel. And the dog had run. Through a blizzard that was dumping 3 inches of snow per hour, in temperatures that had dropped to 5 degrees Fahrenheit, with a bullet lodged in his shoulder, and God only knew what other injuries. The question that burned through Marcus's shock was simple and terrible. What was this dog running from? He pushed the thought away. Questions later. Survival now. That's what his instructors had drilled into him during combat lifesaver training. Treat first, investigate second, mourn third. "This is going to hurt," Marcus said, his damaged voice barely audible over the crackling fire. "I'm sorry, buddy, but I've got to clean this wound." He irrigated the gunshot wound with saline, his movements gentle despite the urgency screaming in his head. The dog flinched when the liquid hit exposed tissue, but he didn't snap, didn't growl, didn't try to bite. He just pressed his head harder against the floor and endured. Like a soldier, Marcus thought, and that comparison made his throat so tight he could barely breathe. He couldn't extract the bullet here. Not safely. Not without proper surgical equipment and anesthesia. But he could clean the wound, pack it with gauze, start broad-spectrum antibiotics, and pray that was enough to keep infection at bay until he could get the dog to a vet. Marcus had supplies. Too many supplies. The VA had overprescribed after his discharge in that special way that said, "We know pills won't fix what's broken inside you, but it's all we have to offer, and it makes us feel better to give you something." "You're tough," Marcus said, working steadily despite his shaking hands. "Tougher than you have any right to be. Tougher than me, that's for damn sure." The dog's eyes tracked Marcus's movements, not with fear, not with aggression, with trust. That look, that absolute, unearned, completely undeserved trust, made Marcus want to scream, made him want to run, made him want to explain to this dying animal that he was the wrong person to depend on, that everything Marcus touched turned to ash and blood, that trusting him was the fastest way to end up dead. But his hands kept working because that's what they knew how to do. Marcus finished packing the bullet wound and moved to examine the dog's paws. Frostbite damage was immediately visible, even through the ice crusted between the pads. He started warming them carefully, wrapping each paw in towels he'd soaked in lukewarm water. That's when he saw it. Partially hidden beneath the matted, blood-soaked fur on the dog's chest was fabric. Not a collar, something heavier, more substantial. Marcus's hands moved with sudden urgency, pulling the matted fur aside to reveal what was underneath. A tactical vest. Canine tactical vest. Military issue. The kind that came with pouches for medical supplies, attachment points for leashes, and, Marcus's breath caught in his throat, the kind that Titan had worn. Marcus's vision blurred. He blinked hard, forcing his eyes to focus, forcing his brain to process what he was seeing instead of what he was remembering. The vest was shredded, cut with what looked like a knife or shears. Someone had tried to remove it, but they'd done it in a hurry, leaving pieces still attached to the dog's harness underneath. "Who are you?" Marcus whispered. His fingers found the identification tag pocket on the vest's left side. The Velcro was stiff with dried blood, but Marcus worked it open and pulled out the metal tag inside. The words stamped into the metal made his blood run colder than the blizzard outside. Ranger MWDK 9-7342 US. Military working dog. Jesus Christ, Marcus breathed. MWD. Military working dog. Active service or recently retired, which meant there should be records. A handler. A unit. A chain of command that knew this dog existed and where he belonged. Marcus looked at the dog, at Ranger, with new understanding. The bullet wound took on new significance. The defensive cuts on Ranger's legs and flanks. The way he flinched when Marcus moved too quickly. The absolute terror mixed with desperation in those amber eyes. This wasn't just a lost pet. This was a soldier who'd been through hell and barely escaped with his life. "What happened to you?" Marcus asked, his voice so rough it was almost a whisper. Ranger's tail moved weakly. Thump. Thump. Marcus grabbed his phone with shaking hands. He scrolled through contacts he hadn't looked at in 6 months. Contacts he'd been avoiding because talking to anyone from his old life meant facing questions he didn't want to answer, and pity he couldn't stand to see. But this wasn't about him anymore. He found the name he needed, Commander William Torres, his former CO. The man who'd sat beside Marcus's hospital bed and said, "You did everything you could. Sometimes everything isn't enough, but that doesn't make it your fault." Marcus had stopped believing that about 3 hours after Torres left. The phone rang 4 times. Marcus almost hung up, almost convinced himself this was stupid, that he should handle this alone, that he didn't deserve to ask for help from people he'd let down. Then Torres answered. "Reed?" The commander's voice was exactly as Marcus remembered, gravel and authority, with an undercurrent of genuine concern. "Is that you?" "Yeah," Marcus rasped. "It's me." "It's almost midnight. You okay, son?" The casual endearment made Marcus's chest hurt. "I need you to run an ID. Military working dog. K9-7342. Name is Ranger." Silence on the other end. Then, carefully, "Why would you need that information, Marcus?" "Because he's in my cabin right now. Bleeding. Someone shot him, and he ran—" Marcus's voice cracked. "He ran through a blizzard and collapsed on my porch. And I don't know what the hell is going on, but his tag says he's a military working dog, and someone tried to kill him." Jesus. More silence. Marcus heard Torres moving, heard the sound of a keyboard. "Stay on the line. Give me 5 minutes. Don't hang up." Marcus waited, one hand resting on Ranger's side, feeling the shallow rise and fall of damaged breathing. He counted heartbeats, monitored respiratory rate, watched for signs of deterioration. Combat medic skills he'd thought he'd never use again, deployed on a bleeding dog in a Colorado cabin while a blizzard tried to bury the world outside. "Marcus," Torres said finally, and something in his voice made Marcus's spine straighten. "You absolutely sure about that ID number? I'm reading it off his tag right now. Why?" "Because according to every military database I can access, K9-7342 Ranger was declared KIA 6 months ago." Marcus's world tilted. "What?" "Killed in action. Afghanistan. Taliban ambush in Helmand province. There's a full casualty report. Recovery confirmation. He was even buried with military honors." That's impossible. But even as Marcus said it, he was looking at Ranger, very much alive, very much bleeding on his cabin floor. "Torres, I'm telling you, he's right here. He's alive." "I believe you. Which means someone falsified casualty reports, faked a burial, and Marcus—" Torres's voice dropped lower. "The operation where Ranger was supposedly killed? It's the same operation where Titan died. The same ambush that took out your entire team." The room seemed to tilt. Marcus put his free hand on the floor to steady himself. "That can't be a coincidence," Marcus said. "No, it can't." Papers rustling on Torres's end. "Marcus, I'm looking at the after-action report right now. Your team and a K9 team were running parallel operations that day. When the ambush happened, both units were hit. You were extracted with survivors from your team. The K9 unit—" Torres stopped. "What about the K9 unit?" "They weren't extracted. The report says they were KIA, all of them. Handler and dog. Bodies recovered later by follow-on forces. But Ranger's alive. Which means either the report is wrong or someone lied about recovering his body." Torres was quiet for a moment. "Marcus, if Ranger survived that ambush and someone faked his death, we need to know why. And we need to know who. How do I find out?" "You don't. You stay there. Keep the dog stable. I'm making calls. This goes higher than both of us." "Torres, that's an order, Reed. You stumbled into something. And until we know what, you need to stay off the grid. Understood?" Marcus looked at Ranger, at the trust in those amber eyes, at a soldier who'd survived when everyone thought he was dead. "Understood," Marcus lied. He hung up and sat in silence, one hand on Ranger's side, feeling each breath, each heartbeat. 6 months ago, Marcus had lost everything. His team, his partner, his purpose. He'd come to this cabin to disappear, to wait for the nightmares and the guilt to finally finish what the Taliban couldn't. Now a ghost from that same operation was bleeding on his floor. And Marcus had a choice to make. He could follow orders, stay put, let other people handle this. Or he could be a SEAL again, could investigate, could fight, could maybe, just maybe, save someone this time. Ranger's eyes met his, and in that look, Marcus saw something he recognized. The same question he asked himself every morning when he woke up from nightmares. Are you going to give up, or are you going to keep fighting? Marcus had been choosing give up for 6 months. Maybe it was time to choose differently. He grabbed his phone again, pulled up a contact he'd been avoiding even longer than Torres. A name that made his chest hurt to read. Dr. Sarah Chen, Titan's sister, the woman who'd called Marcus after the funeral and said, "It's not your fault. My brother loved being your partner. He wouldn't want you destroying yourself over his death." Marcus had hung up on her, blocked her number, couldn't stand to hear absolution he didn't deserve. Now he unblocked the number and hit dial before he could talk himself out of it. She answered on the second ring. "Marcus?" Her voice was exactly as he remembered, strong, warm, concerned. "I need your help," Marcus said. "Anything. What do you need?" "Information. About military working dogs. About what happens to them after they're declared KIA. About—" He stopped, looking at Ranger. "About whether anyone would have a reason to fake a canine's death." Silence. Then, very quietly, "What did you find, Marcus?" So he told her. All of it. The dog on his porch, the bullet wound, the ID tag that said Ranger should be dead. When he finished, Sarah was quiet for a long moment. "Marcus," she said finally, "I've been investigating something. For months. Ever since Titan died, something about his death didn't add up. The after-action reports, the timeline, the way they handled his remains." "What do you mean?" "I mean, I think there's something wrong with how the military is handling KIA working dogs. I think—" She stopped. "I need to see this dog. I need to confirm he's really who his tag says he is." "I'm in the middle of nowhere. Colorado mountains. Blizzard outside." "Then I'm getting on a plane as soon as the weather clears. Keep him alive until I get there. Can you do that?" Marcus looked at Ranger, at the shallow breathing, at the trust that didn't make sense. "I'll try. That's all anyone can ask." After Sarah hung up, Marcus sat with Ranger in the silence. The dog's breathing had evened out slightly. The warmth from the fire and the treatment were helping, but he was still in critical condition. "You picked the wrong door," Marcus told him. I can't be anyone's savior. I'm barely keeping myself alive." Ranger's tail thumped once against the floor. "Yeah, well, you're stubborn. I'll give you that." Marcus checked the wound packing, administered another dose of antibiotics, monitored vital signs. All the things he'd learned to do under fire, now being used in a quiet cabin while snow piled up outside. At 3 a.m., his phone buzzed. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. "Yeah?" "Marcus Reed?" A voice he didn't recognize. Male. Controlled. Professional. "Who's asking?" "Someone who knows you have something that doesn't belong to you. A dog. Military working dog. We need him back." Marcus's blood went cold. "How did you get this number?" "We need him back," the voice repeated. "Tonight. There's a road 3 miles from your cabin. Bring the dog there by dawn. Leave him. Walk away. Nobody gets hurt." "And if I don't?" "Then people get hurt. You get hurt. And the dog dies anyway." "So really, Marcus, you're not saving anything. You're just making this harder than it needs to be." The line went dead. Marcus sat there, phone in his hand, heart pounding. They knew where he was. Knew he had Ranger. Were willing to threaten him to get the dog back. Which meant Ranger wasn't just a survivor of a firefight gone wrong. He was evidence of something bigger. Something worth killing for. Marcus looked at the dog sleeping fitfully by the fire, at the trust in those amber eyes, even in sleep. He thought about Titan, about his team, about every time he'd failed to save someone who counted on him. And he made a decision. "Not this time," Marcus said quietly. "This time, someone lives." He stood up, moved to his gun safe, unlocked it with hands that had finally stopped shaking. Inside were weapons he'd brought home from the service. Weapons he'd told himself he'd never need again. He pulled out his sidearm, checked the magazine, chambered a round. Then he sat back down beside Ranger, gun in his lap, and waited for whoever was coming. Because 6 months ago, Marcus Reed had stopped being a SEAL. But tonight, with a wounded dog depending on him and enemies closing in, he remembered something important. You can take the operator out of the fight, but you can never take the fight out of the operator. And anyone coming for Ranger was about to learn that lesson the hard way. Dawn was 3 hours away when Marcus heard the first vehicle. He'd spent the time since the phone call doing what SEALs do, preparing the battlefield. His cabin was small, isolated, surrounded by forest on 3 sides with a single access road. Tactically, it was defensible if you knew what you were doing. Marcus knew what he was doing. He'd moved Ranger away from windows, positioned him in the bathroom where interior walls would provide cover. The dog had whimpered when Marcus lifted him, but those amber eyes stayed locked on Marcus's face with absolute trust. "I know it hurts," Marcus had whispered, his damaged voice rough with emotion he'd buried for months. "But I need you somewhere safe. And buddy, I need you to stay quiet. Can you do that for me?" Ranger's tail had thumped once, like he understood, like he'd done this before. Now Marcus stood in darkness near his front window, sidearm in one hand, phone in the other. The vehicle's headlights cut through the blizzard about a mile out, moving slowly up the mountain road. His phone buzzed. Torres. "Tell me you didn't do something stupid," the commander said without preamble. "Define stupid." "Marcus, I just got a call from someone very high up the chain asking questions about you, about why a retired SEAL is making inquiries into classified canine operations. Someone's coming for the dog. They called me, threatened me, gave me until dawn to hand him over." "Then give him over." Marcus's jaw tightened. "No. Reed, listen to me. I've been making calls for 3 hours. The rabbit hole this dog represents goes deep. Military contractors, black budget programs, people with resources you can't match. I've matched worse. Not like this, not anymore. You're one man. Retired, with PTSD and shaking hands and— "And what?" Marcus's voice went cold. "And I'm broken? And I should just roll over? Let them take him? Let them finish whatever they started?" Silence. Then, quieter. "I didn't say that." "You didn't have to." Marcus watched the headlights getting closer. "Titan died 6 months ago. My entire team died. And now a dog that was supposed to die in that same operation shows up at my door bleeding and terrified. You telling me that's coincidence?" "No. I'm telling you, it's a conspiracy that's bigger than you, and going after it alone is suicide." "Then I guess old habits die hard." Marcus hung up before Torres could argue. He silenced his phone, checked his weapon, and waited. The vehicle stopped about 200 yards from the cabin. Headlights went dark. Marcus counted seconds, tracking movement through the blizzard. 2 figures emerged, moving tactically, spreading out. Not civilians, not local police. Professionals. Marcus's phone lit up with a text, despite being silenced. Same unknown number. "We don't want trouble, just want our property back. Send the dog out. This ends peacefully." Marcus typed back, "Come get him." The response was immediate. "Bad choice." One of the figures raised something. Marcus saw it through the scope of his mind, the way he used to track targets in the field. Not a weapon. A speaker. "Marcus Reed," the voice echoed through the night, amplified and cold. "We know you're in there. We know the dog is wounded. He needs medical care you can't provide. Let us help him." Marcus stayed silent, watched. "We're not the enemy here. We're trying to recover a valuable military asset, an asset that was stolen from a secure facility. You're harboring stolen property." "Property doesn't run through blizzards with bullet wounds," Marcus called back, his rough voice barely carrying through the storm. "The dog is dangerous, unstable. He attacked his handlers. We had to put him down, but he escaped during transport to disposal. Marcus, he's not a pet, he's a weapon, and weapons need to be controlled." Marcus thought about Ranger's eyes, the trust, the way he'd endured treatment without snapping or growling. If he's so dangerous, why do you want him back alive? Pause. Then, "We don't." The honesty in those two words chilled Marcus more than the blizzard. "We came here to finish the job," the voice continued, humanely. "But you're making this complicated. So here's the new deal. You have 10 minutes to leave. Get in your truck, drive away. We'll handle the dog. You can go back to whatever you were doing before tonight. And if I don't, then we consider you hostile, and we respond accordingly." Marcus checked his watch. 4:47 a.m. "You've got 9 minutes, the voice said. Marcus moved to the bathroom where Ranger lay. The dog lifted his head, ears perked despite his injuries. "Here's the situation," Marcus said quietly, kneeling beside him. "Bad guys outside. They want you dead. I can try to hold them off, but I'm one guy and they're professionals. So if you've got any fight left in you, now would be a good time to let me know." Ranger's tail thumped. His eyes met Marcus's with that same impossible trust. "Yeah," Marcus said. "I was afraid you'd say that." He checked his phone. Sarah had texted. "Weather clearing. Flying out in 2 hours. Hold on." 2 hours. Marcus had to keep Ranger alive for 2 more hours. Against professionals who'd already proven they were willing to kill. The odds weren't good. But Marcus had beaten bad odds before. His phone rang. Different number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. "Marcus Reed?" A woman's voice. Older. Authoritative. "Who is this?" "Colonel Patricia Morrison, U.S. Army Criminal Investigation Command. Commander Torres contacted me about your situation. I need you to listen very carefully." "I'm listening." "The dog in your possession is evidence in an ongoing federal investigation. Evidence that people are willing to kill to suppress. If you give him up, you become a liability. They'll eliminate you, too." "Not exactly incentivizing me to cooperate with them." "I'm not asking you to cooperate with them. I'm asking you to survive long enough for me to get assets to your location. Can you do that?" "How long?" 90 minutes. I have a team in Colorado Springs. They can be wheels up in 20. Marcus looked at his watch. The timeline was tight, but possible. "What do I do until then?" "You're a SEAL, Reed. You know how to hold position against superior numbers. Do that. I'm retired. You're breathing. That means you're not retired. You're just resting. Now get your head in the game and keep that dog alive." She hung up. Marcus stayed kneeling beside Ranger for another moment. 90 minutes. "You think you can make it 90 minutes?" Ranger's tail thumped. "All right then, let's do this." He stood, moved back to his position, checked sightlines and fields of fire. His phone buzzed again. Unknown number. "Time's up. Last chance." Marcus didn't respond. 30 seconds later, his cabin's front window shattered. Not from gunfire, from a thrown object. A canister that hit his floor and started spewing smoke. Tear gas. Marcus had about 5 seconds before the cabin became uninhabitable. He grabbed Ranger, blanket and all, and moved toward the back door. That's when he heard the second canister hit the back porch. They'd boxed him in. Standard tactic. gas from both sides, forced the target out into the kill zone. But Marcus wasn't a standard target. He grabbed a wet towel from the kitchen, wrapped it around Ranger's head to protect his airways, did the same for himself. Then he dropped low where the gas was thinnest and waited. The gas worked fast. Marcus's eyes burned. His throat felt like fire despite the towel. But he'd been through gas chamber training, knew how to function through it. He heard the front door kick in. 2 figures entered, wearing gas masks, moving tactically, weapons up. They weren't expecting Marcus to still be inside. That was their mistake. Marcus took the first one from behind, grabbed the gas mask strap, yanked it off. The man gasped, got a lungful of his own gas, went down, choking. The second one spun, weapon coming around. Marcus was faster. He hit the man's wrist, redirected the weapon, drove an elbow into the gas mask hard enough to crack the seal. More gas. More choking. Both men on the floor, incapacitated by their own tactics. Marcus grabbed one of the gas masks, secured it over his face, took several deep breaths of clean air. Then he grabbed their weapons, their phones, and their radios. The radio crackled. "Entry team, report." Marcus keyed the mic. "Entry team is down. Target is still active. Repeat, target is active." Silence. Then a different voice, colder. "Marcus Reed, impressive. But you just assaulted federal contractors. That's a felony. Federal contractors don't use military tear gas on civilians. Contractors working under classified authority, which you just interfered with. This is your last warning. Surrender the asset and yourself, or we escalate." "Escalate to what? You already tried to gas me." "To heavy weapons. We have authorization to use whatever force is necessary." Marcus felt his blood run cold. They were serious. They'd level his cabin if that's what it took. He looked at Ranger, still wrapped in the towel, still breathing despite the chaos. "Here's my counter-offer," Marcus said into the radio. "You back off. Way off. And maybe I don't call every media outlet in Colorado and tell them about military contractors trying to murder a retired SEAL to cover up whatever illegal operation you're running. You think anyone would believe you? I've got 2 of your guys zip-tied in my cabin. I've got their weapons, their phones, their ID cards. Yeah, I think people would believe me." Longer silence this time. Then, "Stand by." Marcus didn't stand by. He moved, grabbed Ranger, grabbed the gear from the downed contractors, and headed for his truck. If they were regrouping, he had maybe 2 minutes before they hit him with something he couldn't counter. He loaded Ranger into the truck's back seat, jumped into the driver's seat, fired up the engine. His phone rang. Colonel Morrison. "I'm tracking your phone," she said. "Get out of there. Now. They just called for air support." Air support? For one man and a dog? For evidence they can't let exist. "Move, Reed. That's an order." Marcus threw the truck into drive and punched the accelerator. Behind him, his cabin exploded. Not from missiles, from charges they'd planted while using the gas as distraction. The building where Marcus had spent 6 months hiding from the world erupted in flames and debris. If he'd stayed inside, he'd be dead. "Jesus Christ," Marcus breathed, watching the fire in his rearview mirror. "They're serious," Morrison said through the phone. "These people are cleaning up loose ends, and right now, you and that dog are the loosest ends they've got." Marcus drove through the blizzard, tires slipping on ice, the truck fishtailing on curves he'd driven 100 times. "Where do I go?" "I'm sending coordinates. Extraction point. My team will meet you there." "How do I know I can trust you?" "You don't. But considering someone just blew up your house, I'm the best option you've got." She had a point. Coordinates came through, 15 miles away, a ranger station that was closed for winter. Marcus could make it in 20 minutes if the roads held. He checked the rear view. Headlights behind him. Multiple vehicles. "I've got company," he said.
"I see them. Can you lose them?"
"In a blizzard on mountain roads? Probably not."
"Then you're going to have to go through them."
Marcus laughed, but it came out broken. "Ma'am, with all due respect, I'm a retired SEAL with PTSD, and shaking hands, I'm not—"
"You're Marcus Reed. You held off 30 Taliban for 6 hours until backup arrived. You cleared buildings under fire. You saved 8 lives while wounded. And right now, you've got a dog in your back seat who ran through hell to find you because somehow he knew you were the one person who wouldn't quit on him."
Her words hit harder than the explosion. "So stop telling me what you can't do," Morrison continued, "and start being who you used to be, who you still are. Can you do that?" Marcus looked in the rear view at Ranger. The dog was watching him with those steady amber eyes, despite the pain, despite the fear. Trusting him, believing in him, the way Titan used to. "Yeah," Marcus said, his damaged voice stronger now. "Yeah, I can do that." "Good, because you've got 3 vehicles gaining on you and about 12 miles to the extraction point. You're going to have to fight your way through." Marcus checked the weapons he'd taken from the contractors. 2 pistols, extra magazines, a tactical knife. Not much, but more than he'd had 10 minutes ago. "All right," he said. "Let's see if these bastards remember what happens when you corner a SEAL." The first vehicle pulled alongside him, trying to force him off the road. Marcus let them get close. Let them think they had him. Then he swerved hard left, clipped their front quarter panel, sent them spinning into a snowbank. 1 down. The second vehicle accelerated, trying to ram him from behind. Marcus tapped his brakes, let them get close, then accelerated hard. They missed, slid on ice, hit a tree. 2 down. The third vehicle was smarter, hung back, waiting for an opening. Marcus's phone buzzed. Text from Sarah Chen. "Landed. Got your location from Morrison. Coming to you." "Negative," Marcus typed, one-handed while driving. "Too dangerous. Stay clear." Her response. "My brother died protecting you. I'm not letting his legacy die because you're too stubborn to accept help." Marcus felt his throat tighten. He'd avoided Sarah for 6 months because he couldn't face her grief on top of his own. Now she was flying into a war zone for him. The third vehicle made its move. Pulled alongside, window down, weapon visible. Marcus didn't hesitate. He grabbed one of the pistols, fired 3 rounds through his own passenger window. The vehicle swerved away, tires blown out, spiraling into the ditch. 3 down. Marcus's hands were shaking again, but this time it wasn't fear. It was adrenaline. Purpose. The feeling of being in a fight instead of running from one. "Extraction point 2 miles ahead," Morrison said through the phone. "My team is on site. You're going to make it." But then Marcus saw the roadblock. 2 vehicles parked across the road. Armed figures taking position behind them. "I've got a problem," Marcus said. "What kind of problem?" "The kind that involves a roadblock and at least 6 shooters." "Can you go around?" Marcus looked at the terrain. Steep drops on both sides. Heavy snow. 0 visibility. "Not in this weather." "Then you're going to have to go through." Marcus looked at Ranger in the back seat. The dog was struggling now, breathing labored. The stress of the escape was taking its toll. He was running out of time. "All right," Marcus said. "Go in loud. Tell your team to be ready." He disconnected, grabbed both pistols, checked magazines. Then he did something he hadn't done in 6 months. He started thinking like a SEAL again. The roadblock was designed to stop vehicles, force a confrontation, create a kill zone. but it assumed the target would try to stop or negotiate. Marcus didn't stop. He accelerated, straight at the roadblock. The figures behind the vehicles hesitated, probably radioing for orders, trying to figure out if he was actually going to hit them. At the last second, Marcus spun the wheel hard right, used the truck's momentum to slide sideways through a gap they hadn't secured properly. Gunfire erupted. Bullets punched through metal. Glass shattered. Marcus kept accelerating, fighting the wheel, feeling the truck fishtail on ice. Then he was through, past the roadblock, into clear road. "Ranger, you good?" Marcus called back. A weak thump answered him. "Yeah, me too, buddy. Me too." Half a mile ahead, Marcus saw lights, the ranger station, and parked outside, a black SUV with government plates. Colonel Morrison's team. Marcus pulled up, grabbed Ranger, stumbled out into the blizzard. A woman in her 50s stepped out of the SUV. Short gray hair, military bearing. She looked at Marcus, then at the bleeding dog in his arms. "I'm Morrison," she said. "Let's get him inside. I've got a medic." Marcus followed her in. A younger man in tactical gear immediately took Ranger, started assessing him with professional efficiency. "Bullet wound, left shoulder," Marcus reported automatically. "Frostbite on all 4 paws. Shock, blood loss. I've given him antibiotics, but he needs surgery." "We've got a vet standing by," Morrison said. 20 minutes out. The dog will make it." Marcus felt his legs give out. He sat down hard on the floor. "Why?" he asked. "Why are they so desperate to kill him?" Morrison pulled up a tablet, showed Marcus a file. "Because Ranger isn't just a military working dog," she said. "He's a witness." She pulled up photos, documents, casualty reports. 6 months ago, there was an operation in Afghanistan. Your team and a K-9 unit were deployed to clear a compound. Intelligence said it was a Taliban stronghold. But the intelligence was wrong. It was deliberately wrong. Marcus felt ice forming in his chest. "Someone set you up, sent you into an ambush. Your team died. The K-9 team died. Except they didn't all die. Ranger survived, and so did his handler, Staff Sergeant Michael Chen." "Chen," Marcus whispered. "Sarah Chen's brother." "Yes, Michael survived the ambush. He and Ranger were extracted by private contractors, told they were being taken for medical treatment. Instead, they were taken to a black site. Because Michael had figured out what Ranger had been trained to detect." "What?" Morrison showed him another document. "Ranger wasn't trained to find explosives or drugs. He was trained to find money. Specifically, to find massive amounts of cash being smuggled out of Afghanistan by corrupt military contractors." The pieces started falling into place. "The contractors that set up the ambush," Marcus said, "were the same contractors running the smuggling operation. They needed your team dead because you were getting too close. And they needed the K-9 team dead because Ranger could literally sniff out their operation. But Michael and Ranger survived. For 3 months, until Michael tried to escape with evidence. They killed him, made it look like he died in the original ambush. Backdated reports. But Ranger escaped, and he's been running ever since." Marcus looked at the dog being treated by the medic, at the soldier who'd run through hell carrying evidence that could bring down an entire criminal network. "How did he find me?" "Because you were there that day. Your scent was on the battlefield. Michael's scent was there. Titan's scent was there. Dogs have long memories. And Ranger..." Morrison's voice softened. "Ranger remembers his pack. When he escaped, he tracked the one person from that day who he knew was still alive. Me." "You," the medic looked up. "He's stabilizing, but he needs that surgery soon." Morrison's radio crackled. "Colonel, we've got incoming. Multiple vehicles. They're not backing off." She looked at Marcus. "They're going to hit this location. We need to move. Where? There's a military hospital 40 miles south. We can get Ranger there, get him the surgery he needs, and get you both into protective custody until we can make arrests. They'll follow us. I know. That's why you're not coming with us. Marcus stood up. The hell I'm not! Reed, listen to me. These people have resources, contacts. If you stay with the dog, you lead them right to him. But if you split up, if you become the decoy... No! Marcus's voice was firm. I didn't save his life just to abandon him. You didn't save his life. You gave him a chance. Now give him the best chance. Let me get him to safety while you draw their attention. Marcus looked at Ranger. The dog was watching him again with those steady eyes, trusting him to make the right call. And Marcus realized Morrison was right. The best way to protect Ranger was to not be with him. Okay, Marcus said, but I want updates. Every hour. You keep him alive. You have my word. They moved Ranger to Morrison's SUV. As the medic loaded him in, the dog whimpered. Marcus went to the vehicle, knelt beside the open door. Hey, buddy, he said softly. You're going to be okay. These people are going to take care of you, get you fixed up. And when this is over, when it's safe, his voice cracked, I'll find you. I promise. Ranger's tail thumped weakly. Marcus reached out, rested his hand on Ranger's head one more time. You did good, he whispered. Titan would be proud. I'm proud. Morrison touched his shoulder. We need to move. Marcus stood back, watched the SUV pull away, taking Ranger to safety. Leaving Marcus alone at the ranger station with Morrison's backup team and a simple mission: survive long enough to give Ranger a head start. The team leader, a hard-faced man named Collins, handed Marcus a rifle. You remember how to use this? Marcus took the weapon, checked it with movements that came back like muscle memory. Yeah, he said. I remember. Good, because we've got maybe 10 minutes before they hit us. And Collins looked at Marcus with respect. Think you can hold them off? Marcus thought about Titan, about his team, about Ranger running through a blizzard because he refused to quit. Yeah, Marcus said, his damaged voice steady now. I can hold them off. Because 6 months ago, Marcus Reed had stopped being a SEAL. But tonight, he remembered who he was, and anyone coming through that door was about to remember too. The first vehicle arrived 7 minutes later. Collins had positioned his three-man team at windows, Marcus at the back door. Standard defensive perimeter for a structure they couldn't hold long-term but could make expensive to take. They're not trying to hide, Collins said, watching through binoculars. 4 vehicles, at least 12 shooters. Professional movement. Marcus checked his rifle, feeling the weight settle into his hands like an old friend he'd been avoiding. They think we're trapped. We are trapped. No, they think we've got nowhere to run. That's different. Marcus looked at Collins. How long can you hold them? Depends on what you're planning. I'm planning on making them regret coming here. Collins almost smiled. Commander Torres said you were stubborn. Didn't mention you were crazy. In the teams, we called it tactical flexibility. The radio crackled. A voice Marcus recognized from earlier. Marcus Reed, we know you're inside. We know the dog is gone. This doesn't have to end badly for you. Walk out. Hands up. We talk. Marcus keyed the radio. You blew up my house. You tried to kill a wounded dog. We're way past talking. That was unfortunate escalation, but it proves we're serious. You can't win this fight. There are 12 of us, 4 of you. We have superior numbers, superior firepower, and authorization to use lethal force. Authorization from who? Pause. Then, people who outrank you.
People who can make you disappear.
Last chance, Reed. Surrender now, or we come in hard. Collins looked at Marcus. Your call. Marcus thought about Ranger, hopefully getting farther away with every passing minute. Thought about Morrison's team racing toward the military hospital. Thought about buying them time. Tell them to come get me, Marcus said. Collins keyed his radio to his own team. All stations, weapons free. Engage on my mark. The contractors started their approach, moving tactically, using vehicles for cover, suppressing fire to keep defenders' heads down. Standard assault pattern. Marcus had run it 100 times in training, executed it dozens of times in combat. He knew every weakness in it. Collins, Marcus said, your team trained in ambush tactics? We wrote the manual on ambush tactics. Good, because we're not defending this station. We're baiting them in. Collins's eyes widened. You want to let them breach? I want them committed, inside, where their numbers work against them instead of for us. That's insane. That's how you beat superior forces. You take away their advantages. Marcus moved to the back door. Give me 2 minutes to get in position. Then let them in. Reed, if this goes wrong, then Morrison gets more time. Either way, Ranger lives. That's what matters. Marcus slipped out the back door before Collins could argue, moving low and fast through the blizzard. His NWU Type 3 camo blended perfectly with the snow and shadows. The contractors were focused on the front, expecting resistance there. They weren't watching their backs. Marcus circled wide, came up behind their rear vehicle. 2 men inside, monitoring radio traffic, coordinating the assault. Command element. Take them out, and the assault loses coordination. Marcus moved like a ghost. Opened the driver's door before either man could react. Had his rifle up and ready. Don't, he said quietly. Both men froze. Radios, weapons, on the floor, slow. They complied, hands shaking. Who sent you? Marcus asked. We're just contractors, man. We don't know the whole picture. You know enough to blow up houses and kill dogs. Try again. The driver swallowed. There's a guy, goes by Preston, former CIA. He runs the operation, the money smuggling. Your team got too close 6 months ago, so he set up the ambush, made it look like Taliban. Marcus's blood ran cold. How many teams has he killed? I don't know. A lot. Anytime someone got close to the operation, Preston cleaned house. Made it look like combat losses. Nobody questioned it because we were in a war zone. Where is he now? I don't know, I swear. He operates through cutouts. We get orders through encrypted apps. Never meet him face to face. Marcus believed him. Preston had built the perfect system. Disposable contractors, plausible deniability, no direct connections. How much money are we talking about? Hundreds of millions, maybe more. Preston's been running this for years. The radio in the vehicle crackled. Command, we're breaching now. Marcus looked at the two contractors. You've got two choices. You can stay in this vehicle, keep quiet, and live. Or you can warn your buddies, and I'll make sure you don't. We'll stay quiet, the driver said quickly. Marcus zip-tied them to the steering wheel, grabbed their radios, and moved back toward the ranger station. Inside, he could hear the assault beginning. Flashbangs, breaching charges, shouts. Collins and his team were falling back like Marcus had instructed, making the contractors think they were winning. Marcus slipped in through the back door they'd left deliberately unlocked. 8 contractors were inside now, moving room to room, clearing with professional precision. They never saw Marcus behind them. He moved like he used to in Fallujah, in Ramadi, in 100 other close-quarters fights. Silent, fast, lethal when he needed to be. The first contractor went down from a rifle butt to the back of the head, unconscious before he hit the floor. The second turned just in time to catch Marcus's fist. Down. The third actually got his weapon up. Marcus redirected it, used the man's momentum against him, sent him crashing into a wall. 3 down. The remaining 5 realized they'd been flanked. Spun around, weapons coming up. Collins and his team chose that moment to come out of hiding, hitting the contractors from the front. Caught in a crossfire of their own making, the contractors did the smart thing. They surrendered. 2 minutes later, Marcus stood in the ranger station surrounded by zip-tied contractors, while Collins secured their weapons. That, Collins said, was the ballsiest tactical maneuver I've seen in 20 years. Marcus was shaking again, adrenaline fading, the reality of what he'd just done hitting him. He'd been in a gunfight, multiple hostiles, and he'd won. 6 months ago, he couldn't imagine fighting again. Couldn't imagine being a SEAL again. Now he'd just proven he still had it. His phone rang. Morrison. "Ranger's in surgery," she said. "Vet says he'll make it. Marcus, you saved his life." Marcus sat down hard, the relief overwhelming. "Thank you." "No, thank you, because while you were buying us time, my team was making arrests. We've got the contractors who ran the smuggling operation. We've got financial records. We've got testimony from survivors. Marcus, we're taking down the whole network." "What about Preston?" Silence. Then, "Preston's in the wind. The moment his contractors failed to check in, he disappeared. We're hunting him, but he's a ghost." "Yeah, and ghosts don't leave trails." Morrison paused. "Marcus, there's something else. One of the contractors we arrested? He knew your CO, Commander Torres." Marcus's chest tightened. "What do you mean, knew him?" "Torres was the one who approved the operation that got your team killed. The operation based on Preston's intelligence. Marcus, I don't think Torres was corrupt. I think he was fooled like everyone else. But Preston knew Torres would approve the mission because Torres trusted the intelligence network." The world tilted. "Torres sent us into that ambush?" "Unknowingly, but yes." Marcus thought about every conversation he'd had with Torres since the ambush. Every time Torres had said, "You did everything right." Every assurance that the mission failure wasn't Marcus's fault. Had Torres known? Had he suspected? "Where's Torres now?" Marcus asked. "I don't know. He's not answering calls." "Marcus, if Preston thinks Torres is a loose end," Marcus was already moving. "Send me Torres's location, last known. Reed, you need to stand down. Let law enforcement handle this. Torres saved my life, multiple times. If Preston's going after him, I'm not standing down." Collins tossed Marcus keys. "Take my vehicle. It's faster." Morrison sighed. "I'm texting you an address. Torres is home in Colorado Springs. But Marcus, if Preston's there, then I'll do what SEALs do. I'll get my teammate out." Marcus ran for Collins's SUV, fired it up, and drove into the storm. The drive to Colorado Springs took 45 minutes of white-knuckle driving through the blizzard. Marcus's phone buzzed constantly. Morrison, Sarah Chen, even his sister trying to reach him. He ignored them all, focused on driving, on getting to Torres before Preston did. The commander's house was in a quiet neighborhood, lights off, no vehicles in the driveway. Marcus approached tactically, weapon ready. The front door was ajar. Not good. He moved inside, clearing rooms with movements that were pure muscle memory now. Kitchen, clear. Living room, clear. Study. Torres sat at his desk, gun in his hand, pointed at his own head. "Don't come any closer,"
Torres said without looking up. Marcus froze. "Sir, what are you doing?" "What I should have done 6 months ago. What I should have done the moment I realized what I'd done." Torres's voice was hollow. "I sent you into that ambush, Marcus. I sent your entire team, 8 good men dead because I trusted the wrong intelligence, because I didn't ask enough questions. You didn't know. I should have known. I'm the commander. It's my job to know." Torres finally looked at Marcus, and the pain in his eyes was unbearable. "Every night for 6 months I see their faces. Every morning I wake up knowing I killed them." Marcus recognized that pain, had been living it himself. "Sir, put the gun down." "Why? So I can live with this? So I can pretend I deserve to live when 8 better men are dead? Because killing yourself doesn't bring them back, doesn't honor them, doesn't fix anything." Marcus moved closer, slowly. "Sir, I've spent 6 months wanting to die, believing I should have died. And you know what I learned tonight?" "What?" "That survivor's guilt is a lie. The real way to honor the dead isn't dying with them. It's living for them. Using the time they bought us to make their sacrifice mean something." "How? How do I make this mean something?" "You help me finish this. Preston's still out there, still running his operation, still ready to kill more teams to protect his profits. We take him down. We make sure no one else dies for his greed. That's how we honor them." Torres's hand shook. The gun wavered. "I don't deserve redemption." "Neither do I, but we're going to earn it anyway." Marcus extended his hand. "Please, sir, I can't do this alone. I need you." For a long moment, Torres didn't move. Then, slowly, he lowered the gun, set it on the desk. "Okay," he said, his voice breaking. "Okay." Marcus helped him up, pulled him into a brief, hard hug. "Thank you," Torres whispered. "Thank you for not giving up." They were heading for the door when Marcus's phone rang. Unknown number. He answered. "Yeah?" "Marcus Reed." The voice was cultured, educated, cold. "My name is Preston. I believe you've been dismantling my operation." Marcus's blood turned to ice. "I know who you are." "Good. Then you know I don't give up easily. Your interference has cost me significantly, but I'm a businessman. I believe in cutting losses when necessary." "What do you want?" "I want you to understand something. The dog you saved, Ranger, he's not safe. He'll never be safe, because I have resources you can't imagine. Connections everywhere. I can get to him in that military hospital. I can get to the doctors treating him. I can get to everyone you care about. Try it. Morrison's got your entire network under arrest. She has some of my network, the expendable parts. But you can never get all of me. I'm everywhere and nowhere. And Marcus, I'm patient. Maybe I can't get Ranger today, but next week, next month, eventually your guard drops. Eventually, he's alone. And when he is, I'll finish what I started." Marcus felt rage building. "You touch that dog." "What? What will you do? You're one man, retired, broken. You can't fight me forever. Watch me." Preston laughed. "I admire your spirit, really. But here's reality. You've won a battle. I own the war. And sooner or later I'll—" The line went dead. Marcus stared at his phone. He hung up. Torres looked pale. Or someone cut the connection. "Marcus, that call was traced. Federal agents would have locked onto his location." Marcus's phone rang again. Morrison. "We got him," she said without preamble. "Preston made the call from a safe house in Denver. FBI is breaching now. Marcus, it's over." But even as she said it, Marcus felt unease. Preston had been too confident, too willing to talk. "Morrison, it's a trap." "What?" Preston wanted you to trace that call, wanted federal agents to breach that location. There's going to be... An explosion echoed through the phone line. "Morrison!" Marcus shouted. Static. Then Morrison's voice, shaken. "I'm okay. The safe house. It was rigged. Explosives. We've got agents down." "Preston?" "Gone. The explosion was his exit strategy. Marcus, he played us." Marcus slammed his fist against the SUV hood. "He's gone." Torres put a hand on his shoulder. "But we're not, and neither is Ranger. We keep fighting, keep hunting. That's what SEALs do." Marcus's phone buzzed with a text from Sarah Chen. "Just got to the hospital. Ranger's out of surgery. Asking for you." Marcus read the message twice. "Dogs can't ask for people." Torres read over his shoulder. "No, but they can refuse to settle down until the right person shows up. That dog ran through hell to find you, Marcus. Maybe it's time you stopped running from him." The drive to the military hospital took an hour. By the time Marcus arrived, dawn was breaking. The blizzard had finally stopped, leaving the world covered in pristine white. Sarah Chen met him in the lobby. She looked like her brother. Same strong features, same determined eyes. Seeing her was like seeing a ghost. "Marcus," she said. "Sarah, I'm sorry for avoiding you, for not returning your calls, for..." She hugged him, hard. "You're here now. That's what matters." She led him to the recovery area. Ranger lay in a large kennel, bandaged but alive. When he saw Marcus, his tail started wagging. "Hey, buddy," Marcus said, kneeling beside the kennel. "You made it." Ranger pressed his nose against the bars. "The vet says he'll make a full recovery," Sarah said. "The bullet's out. Frostbite was severe but not permanent. He's going to need rehab, physical therapy, but he's going to live," Marcus finished. "Yeah, because of you." Marcus looked at Sarah. "Your brother, Michael. You should have what? Saved him? Marcus, you were in a different location, different firefight. You couldn't have known he survived. Couldn't have known Preston took him." Her voice softened. "But you saved his dog. You saved the evidence that's bringing down the people who killed him. That's enough." "Is it?" Michael would think so. She pulled out a photo, handed it to Marcus. It showed Michael Chen and Ranger, both in full tactical gear, both grinning at the camera. He loved that dog, talked about him constantly, said Ranger was the best partner he ever had. Marcus looked at Ranger, saw Titan in those amber eyes, saw Michael, saw every handler canine bond that defined trust and loyalty. "What happens to him now?" Marcus asked. "Technically, he's still military property. But given his service, his trauma, the whole situation," Sarah smiled. "Morrison's filed paperwork to have him retired, honorably, with full benefits. And the Army's looking for an appropriate handler to adopt him." "Who?" Sarah looked at Marcus. "Someone who understands what he's been through. Someone who's proven they'll protect him no matter what. Someone who needs him as much as he needs them." Marcus met her eyes. "Sarah, I can't. I'm barely holding myself together. I can't be responsible for saving his life? Already did that. For protecting him? Already proved you will. For giving him a home? Marcus, he tracked you across state lines through a blizzard. He chose you. The question isn't whether you can be responsible for him. It's whether you'll accept the responsibility he's already given you." Marcus looked at Ranger. The dog was watching him with that steady gaze that said, "I'm not asking for perfect. I'm asking for you." "I don't have a house anymore," Marcus said. "Preston blew it up. So build a new one or buy one, or rent one. Marcus, stop making excuses. I have PTSD, nightmares, panic attacks. So does he. Maybe you can help each other. I'm not qualified to. You're a combat medic who kept him alive through a blizzard and a firefight. You're exactly qualified. Sarah knelt beside him. Marcus, my brother is dead, but his dog is alive, and his dog chose you. So I'm asking, begging, please don't let my brother's last legacy die because you're too scared to try. Marcus felt his throat close, felt tears burning behind his eyes for the first time in 6 months. What if I fail him? He whispered. What if you don't? What if this is exactly what you both need? Marcus reached through the kennel bars. Ranger licked his fingers, tail wagging harder. And Marcus made a decision. Okay, he said. Okay, I'll take him. Sarah hugged him again. Thank you. The kennel door opened and Ranger hobbled out, bandaged and limping, but alive. He pressed against Marcus's leg, and Marcus felt something shift in his chest. Not healing. Not yet, but the first crack in the wall he'd built around his heart. All right, buddy, Marcus said, scratching behind Ranger's ears. I guess we're partners now. Fair warning, I'm a mess. I don't sleep. I have nightmares. I'm still figuring out how to be human again. Ranger's tail wagged. Yeah, I figured you wouldn't care about that. Marcus looked at Sarah. What do I do now? Now? You go home, wherever that is, and you start over. Both of you. Marcus and Ranger walked out of the hospital together into the morning light. The world was covered in fresh snow, clean and new. Marcus's phone buzzed. Morrison. Preston's gone, she said. But we've frozen his assets, arrested his key operatives, dismantled his smuggling network. It's not perfect, but it's justice. Thank you. Marcus, there's something else. Torres told me about your cabin. I've authorized temporary housing assistance, and the Army wants to offer you a position. What kind of position? Training position. Working with military working dogs and their handlers, teaching them survival skills, tactical medicine, all the things you learned as a SEAL. Interested? Marcus looked at Ranger, thought about Michael Chen, about Titan, about every canine team that deserved better. Yeah, he said. Yeah, I'm interested. Good. Report to Fort Carson in 2 weeks. And Marcus, bring Ranger. He's officially assigned to you. After Morrison hung up, Torres called. You saved my life tonight, he said. Thank you. You saved mine 6 months ago. We're even. No, we're teammates. That's different. Torres paused. I'm retiring. Military. Going to work with veteran suicide prevention. Try to stop other commanders from making my mistakes. That's good work. Maybe you can help. You understand what it's like. The guilt. The survivor's burden. Maybe together we can help people carry it. Marcus thought about the gun in Torres's hand, about his own dark nights, about choosing to fight instead of surrender. Yeah, he said. Maybe we can. He drove to a hotel, got a room that allowed dogs, and collapsed on the bed with Ranger beside him. For the first time in 6 months, Marcus fell asleep without pills. And for the first time in 6 months, when the nightmares came, he had someone there to wake him up. Ranger's cold nose pressed against his face, amber eyes steady and calm. I'm okay, Marcus whispered. Just bad dreams. Ranger stayed close, a warm presence that said, I'm here, you're not alone. And Marcus realized something. He'd spent 6 months thinking he lost everything in that ambush. But maybe he'd been wrong. Maybe what he'd lost was the ability to see what he still had. Purpose, second chances, a dog who refused to quit on him. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough to build a new life on.
2 weeks wasn't enough time to heal 6 months of damage. But Marcus tried anyway.
The hotel became their base while he looked for permanent housing. Every morning started the same. Ranger would wake him from nightmares with a cold nose and steady eyes that said, "You're safe now." "I know, buddy," Marcus would rasp, his damaged voice rough in the pre-dawn darkness. "I know." They'd developed routines. Physical therapy for Ranger at 0700. Marcus's own therapy sessions at 900. Lunch. More exercises. Dinner. Then the hardest part. Trying to sleep without pills, with only Ranger's presence to keep the demons at bay. Dr. Elizabeth Warren, the VA therapist Marcus had been avoiding for months, noticed the difference immediately when he showed up for their first session in 6 months. "You brought a dog," she said, looking at Ranger lying calmly at Marcus's feet. "He's my partner. Goes where I go." "I see. And how long have you had him?" "Week and a half." Dr. Warren made a note. "Marcus, when we last spoke, you couldn't leave your cabin, couldn't be around people, couldn't sleep more than 2 hours without nightmares. Now you're here, in my office, with a dog, looking more present than I've seen you in months. What changed?" Marcus looked at Ranger. "I had a reason to fight. Someone who needed me more than I needed to give up." "The dog?" "His name is Ranger, and yeah, he needed me. Still needs me." "Tell me what happened." So Marcus did. He told her about the blizzard, the wounded dog on his porch, the conspiracy, the firefight, all of it. Dr. Warren listened without interrupting. When he finished, she set down her pen. "Marcus, you just described multiple traumatic events, life-threatening situations, combat scenarios. And you're here, functioning, taking care of an injured animal. That's remarkable." "Doesn't feel remarkable. Feels like I'm barely holding it together." "But you are holding it together. That's the point. 6 months ago, you weren't. What's different now?" Marcus thought about it. 6 months ago, I didn't have a mission. Didn't have anyone depending on me. Didn't have a reason to be anything except broken. And now? Now I've got Ranger. Got this training position at Fort Carson. Got... He stopped, surprised by the realization. Got a future, maybe. Dr. Warren smiled. That maybe is progress. Let's work on turning it into yes. After therapy, Marcus took Ranger to the veterinary rehab center. The specialist, Dr. Patricia Torres, no relation to Commander Torres, was impressed with Ranger's recovery. "His paw pads are healing beautifully," she said, examining Ranger's feet. "The frostbite could have been much worse. You did good work treating him in the field." "I did what I was trained to do." "You did more than that. Most people would have panicked. You stayed calm, methodical, saved his life." She looked up at Marcus. "He trusts you completely. That doesn't happen overnight." "He trusted me before I deserved it." "Maybe he saw something in you that you didn't see in yourself." Dr. Torres handed Marcus a sheet of exercises. "Keep doing these. Gentle walks. Swimming if you can find a facility. And Marcus, talk to him. I know it sounds silly, but dogs respond to tone and consistency. The more you talk to him, the more he bonds with you." That night in the hotel room, Marcus tried it. Felt ridiculous at first. "So, buddy," he said, sitting on the floor beside Ranger. "We report to Fort Carson in 5 days. I'm supposed to teach canine handlers how to keep their dogs alive in combat. Ironic, right? Considering I couldn't keep Titan alive." Ranger's tail thumped. "Yeah, I know. Different situation. Different circumstances. Dr. Warren keeps telling me that. Doesn't make it easier." Marcus ran his hand over Ranger's head, feeling the softness of his ears. "But I'm going to try. For you. For Michael Chen. For Titan."
For every K-9 team that deserves better than what we got. Ranger shifted closer, rested his head on Marcus's leg. You know what scares me most? Not failing. I've already failed. What scares me is succeeding. Because if I succeed, if I actually help people, then I have to admit I could have done more before. Could have been better.
Could have, his voice cracked.
Ranger whined softly. Sorry, getting too deep. Marcus cleared his throat. Let's try this sleep thing again. You wake me up if the nightmares get bad? Ranger's tail thumped agreement. They made it 4 hours before Marcus woke up screaming. Ranger was there immediately, pressing close, grounding him. Thanks, buddy, Marcus whispered when his heart rate slowed. You're better at this than the pills ever were. 3 days before they were due at Fort Carson, Marcus got a call from Sarah Chen. Have you seen the news? She asked, voice tight. No, why? Preston. They found him. Or rather, they found his body. Apparent suicide in a motel in Nevada. Marcus felt ice in his stomach. Suicide? That's what they're calling it. Single gunshot to the head. But Marcus, the way it was staged, something's not right. Preston was many things, but he wasn't suicidal. He was arrogant, believed he'd get away with everything. You think someone killed him? I think someone wanted to close loose ends, and Preston knew too much about too many people. Someone higher up the chain didn't want him talking. Marcus thought about all the evidence Morrison had gathered, the financial records, the testimony. Does Morrison know? She's the one who called me. Marcus, she wants you to be careful. If someone killed Preston to silence him, they might come after other loose ends. Like Ranger. Like anyone connected to the operation. You, me, Torres, Morrison's team, we're all witnesses now. After Sarah hung up, Marcus looked at Ranger. The dog was watching him with those steady amber eyes. We might not be safe here, Marcus said. Someone out there wants this story buried. Wants everyone connected to it buried too. His phone rang again. Morrison. I assume Sarah told you, she said. Preston's dead. You think it's murder. I know it's murder. The crime scene was too clean, too convenient. And Marcus, there's something else. The motel where they found Preston? Security footage shows 2 men entering his room an hour before he died. Professional, methodical. They were in and out in 15 minutes. Did you ID them? Still working on it. But Marcus, those men, they're looking for something. Preston had evidence, files, documents that could bring down people even higher than him. We never found it, and I think whoever killed Preston is still looking for it too. What does that have to do with me? Preston made that phone call to you, remember? Right before we tried to arrest him? Marcus, I've been thinking about that call. About why he'd risk giving away his location just to gloat. He was setting a trap. Or he was sending a message. Something only you would understand. Did he say anything unusual? Anything that seemed out of place? Marcus thought back to the call. Preston's voice. His confidence. His words. He said I couldn't fight him forever. That he was everywhere and nowhere. That he owned the war. Owned the war, Morrison repeated. Marcus, what if that wasn't just bragging? What if that was a clue? A clue to what? To where he hid the evidence. Preston was CIA. He'd know how to hide things in plain sight, how to use language as code. Own the war. Could that mean something specific? Marcus felt his combat mind engaging, the part that used to analyze enemy communications for hidden meanings. War. Afghanistan. The war zones where he operated, where he ran his smuggling operation. We've already searched his known locations there. Came up empty. Then it's not a location. It's something else. Something about ownership, property, assets. Morrison went quiet. Then, the military working dogs. Marcus, what if Preston hid his evidence with the dogs? In their records, their transport documentation, their identification systems, Marcus finished. Morrison, Ranger has a microchip, standard for all military working dogs. What if Preston used the chip database to hide encrypted files? That's brilliant and insane. But we'd need access to the military's K9 microchip database. That's heavily secured. I know someone who might have access. Dr. Patricia Torres, the vet who's been treating Ranger. She works with military working dogs. She'd have legitimate reasons to access that database. Can you trust her? Marcus thought about Dr. Torres's professionalism, her care for Ranger. Yeah, I can trust her. He called Dr. Torres, explained the situation. To her credit, she didn't hesitate. Come to the clinic, tonight. I'll access the database, and we'll check Ranger's chip. Marcus and Ranger arrived at the clinic after hours. Torres let them in through the back entrance, clearly nervous. I could lose my license for this, she said. If anyone finds out I'm accessing classified files without authorization. I know, and I wouldn't ask if it wasn't critical. She led them to her computer, pulled up the database, scanned Ranger's chip. The standard information appeared. Name, ID number, service record, medical history. I don't see anything unusual, Dr. Torres said. Can you access the raw chip data? The actual binary code? That requires admin access. I don't have that level of... She stopped, pulled up a different screen. Wait. There's an anomaly. Ranger's chip has more data stored than it should. Standard chips hold maybe 2 kilobytes. His is showing 50 megabytes. That's not medical data. No, that's files, documents, hidden in the chip's memory. Dr. Torres's hands flew over the keyboard. I can extract it, but it'll take time. And if it's encrypted, we'll need... The clinic's front door alarm beeped. Someone had entered. Dr. Torres went pale. I'm the only one with after-hours access. Marcus grabbed his sidearm, moved toward the front of the clinic. Stay here. Lock this door after me. Marcus, lock it. He moved through the dark clinic, Ranger at his side despite his injuries. The dog knew something was wrong, could sense Marcus's tension. 2 figures moved through the reception area. Professional movement. Weapons drawn. The same men from Morrison's security footage. They'd tracked Ranger. Probably the same way Marcus had figured out where Preston hid the evidence, by realizing the dog was the key. Marcus Reed, one called out. We know you're here. We know you have the dog. Give him to us and walk away. Marcus positioned himself behind a counter, kept his voice steady. I'm a federal witness. You kill me, you confirm everything we suspect. Who said anything about killing? We just want the dog. Well, specifically, we want what's in the dog. Preston was clever hiding his insurance policy in a military working dog chip. Clever enough that it took us this long to figure it out. And once you have it, what? You delete the evidence? Kill everyone who knows about it? Something like that. But Marcus, here's the thing. You don't have to die tonight. Your friend Commander Torres? He's already decided to cooperate. He's giving testimony, turning over documents, playing the repentant commander who got fooled. We can't touch him without making him a martyr. But you? You're just a PTSD-suffering retired SEAL who's been acting erratic. Your death would look like suicide. Tragic, but believable. Marcus felt cold rage building. You're not taking this dog. Then you're choosing to die with him. Seems stupid, but it's your choice. The man raised his weapon. Ranger growled, low and menacing. Not the sound of a pet. The sound of a military working dog trained for combat. The man hesitated. Control your dog, Reed.
He doesn't like threats. Neither do I.
What happened next happened fast. The second man moved to flank Marcus. Ranger, despite his injuries, launched himself at the threat. 85 pounds of trained military working dog hit the man before he could react. They went down hard, the weapon clattering across the floor. The first man swung his weapon toward Ranger.
Marcus fired. Center mass. Training took over. Muscle memory. The cold precision of a SEAL engaging a threat.
The man went down. The second man, struggling with Ranger, reached for his weapon. Marcus was there first, kicked it away, had his own weapon pressed to the man's head. Don't move. Don't breathe. Don't give me a reason. The man froze. Marcus keyed his phone to speaker. Morrison, I've got one of your killers. Clinic address incoming. Send everyone. Doctor. Torres emerged from the back room, shaking.
Is it over?
Yeah, it's over. But even as he said it, Marcus felt the weight of what he'd done. He'd killed a man. First time since his discharge. First time since the ambush that killed his team. His hands started shaking. Ranger, bloodied but alive, pressed against his leg. Steady. Grounding. I'm okay, Marcus whispered. I'm okay. Federal agents arrived 12 minutes later. They secured the scene, arrested the surviving killer, retrieved the body. Morrison showed up personally. You did good, Marcus. These men killed Preston, probably killed others. You stopped them. I killed a man. You defended yourself, defended the dog, defended evidence that's going to bring down an entire criminal network. She looked at Ranger. How's he doing? He attacked on command, protected me. Marcus's voice broke. He's everything Titan was. Then Titan would be proud. And Marcus? So am I. Dr. Torres successfully extracted the files from Ranger's chip. 50 megabytes of encrypted documents that, once decoded, revealed everything. Financial records, names, bank accounts, offshore holdings. Evidence that implicated not just military contractors, but government officials, foreign nationals, and corporate executives. The scandal broke 3 days later. Headlines screamed about corruption, smuggling, murdered soldiers. Congressional hearings were scheduled, arrests made, and through it all, Marcus and Ranger prepared to report to Fort Carson. The night before they left, Marcus sat in their hotel room with Ranger and made a phone call he'd been avoiding. His sister answered on the first ring. Marcus? Is that really you? Yeah, Sarah. It's me. I've been trying to reach you for 6 months. Do you know how worried? I know. I'm sorry. I should have called. Should have let you know I was alive. Should have asked for help? Her voice softened. Marcus, you're my brother. I don't care what you're going through. I want to be there for you. I'm better now. Not fixed, but better. What changed? Marcus looked at Ranger. I found someone who needed me more than I needed to fall apart, and he kind of forced me to start putting myself back together. A person? A dog. Sarah laughed, but it was wet with tears. Of course, only you would let a dog fix what therapy couldn't. Therapy helped. The dog just gave me a reason to show up to therapy. They talked for an hour, about the last 6 months, about Titan, about their parents, about everything Marcus had been avoiding. When they finally hung up, Marcus felt lighter than he had in months. You know what, Ranger? He said. I think we might actually make it. This training position, this new life. I think we might actually survive it. Ranger's tail thumped. Yeah, me too, buddy. Me too. The next morning they drove to Fort Carson. Marcus wore his NWU Type 3 uniform, the same one he'd been wearing the night Ranger collapsed on his porch. It felt different now. Not like a costume, like armor he'd earned the right to wear again. The canine training facility was impressive. State-of-the-art equipment, experienced handlers, dogs at various stages of training. Marcus and Ranger were met by Master Sergeant Rodriguez, a no-nonsense woman in her 40s who'd been training military working dogs for 20 years. "Reed," she said, extending her hand. "Heard a lot about you. And about your partner." "All true, I hope." "Depends. The part about you fighting off a dozen contractors while keeping a wounded dog alive? That true?" "More or less." "Good. Because I need someone who knows how to survive. Someone who can teach these handlers what it really takes to keep their dogs alive in the field." She looked at Ranger. "And this is the famous Ranger, the dog that exposed a billion-dollar smuggling operation." Ranger's tail wagged. "He doesn't care about fame," Marcus said. "He just wants to work." "Then he's in the right place. Come on, let me show you around." They toured the facility. Marcus met handlers and their dogs, young men and women who looked at Marcus with respect, with curiosity, with hope that he could teach them something that might save their lives someday. The weight of that responsibility should have terrified him. Instead, it felt right. At the end of the day, Rodriguez took Marcus aside. "You start officially Monday, but I want to ask you something first. That dog of yours, Ranger, he's got combat experience. He's got survival skills. He's got training that most of our dogs will never see. Would you consider letting him work with our advanced teams? Not full deployment, but training exercises? Demonstrations?" Marcus looked at Ranger. The dog was tired, limping slightly on his still healing paws, but his eyes were bright, alert, eager. "What do you think, buddy?" Marcus asked. "You up for showing these young dogs how it's done?" Ranger barked. Once. Sharp. Affirmative. "I'll take that as a yes," Rodriguez said, smiling. That night, in the temporary housing Fort Carson provided, Marcus sat with Ranger and thought about everything that had happened in 2 weeks. He'd gone from suicidal isolation to having a purpose, from broken to healing, from alone to having a partner who refused to quit on him. His phone buzzed. Torres. "How's day 1?" the commander asked. "Good. Really good. How's the Senate hearing going?" "Brutal, but necessary. I'm telling them everything. About the intelligence failures, want to thank the people who exposed what really happened to their loved ones." Marcus felt his throat tighten. "I don't know if I can face them." "You faced worse. And Marcus, they don't blame you. They blame Preston. They blame the system that let him operate. But you're a hero to them." "I'm not a hero." "No, you're something better. You're a survivor who chose to fight instead of surrender, who chose to save a life instead of giving up on your own. That's more valuable than heroism. That's hope." After Torres hung up, Marcus lay on the floor beside Ranger, staring at the ceiling. "You know what's crazy?" he said to the dog. 2 weeks ago, I thought my life was over. Thought I didn't have anything left worth living for. Then you showed up, bleeding and broken, and somehow you saw something in me that I couldn't see in myself." Ranger shifted closer. "You gave me a mission, a purpose, to build instead of mourn, to live instead of just survive." Outside, the stars were coming out over Fort Carson. Inside, a broken seal and a wounded dog lay together in the darkness, healing each other one moment at a time. Tomorrow, they'd start their new mission. Tonight, they just existed together. Proof that sometimes the most broken things can become the strongest when they refuse to stay broken alone. Monday morning came too fast and too slow all at once. Marcus stood outside the canine training facility at 0600, Ranger at his side, both of them wearing their nervousness differently. Marcus's hands shook. Ranger's tail was tucked low. We've done harder things than this, Marcus told him, not sure which of them he was trying to convince. We survived a blizzard, a firefight, multiple assassins. We can handle teaching some handlers. Ranger looked up at him with those steady amber eyes that said, "You're right, but I'm still scared." "Yeah, buddy. Me too." Master Sergeant Rodriguez met them inside. "Morning, Reed. You ready?" Define ready. Breathing, conscious, not actively running away. That's about as ready as anyone gets their first day. She led him to a classroom where 15 handlers sat waiting, all of them younger than Marcus, all of them looking at him with expectations he wasn't sure he could meet. "Listen up," Rodriguez said. "This is Chief Reed, former Navy SEAL, combat medic, and the man who kept a critically wounded military working dog alive through conditions that would have killed most people. He's here to teach you how to do the same. And that," she pointed at Ranger, "is his partner, Ranger. MWD, who survived enemy action, smuggling operations, and multiple attempts on his life. If you're smart, you'll pay attention to both of them." She left Marcus standing in front of 15 expectant faces. He opened his mouth. Nothing came out except a sound like a broken engine trying to start. His throat was closing, his vision tunneling, the familiar signs of a panic attack. Then Ranger pressed against his leg. Warm, solid, real. Marcus took a breath. "I'm not a teacher. I'm not qualified to stand here and tell you how to do your jobs. What I am is a guy who made a lot of mistakes and somehow didn't get his partner killed because of them." He looked down at Ranger. "2 weeks ago, this dog showed up at my door dying. Someone had shot him, left him to freeze in a blizzard. He should have been dead a dozen times over. But he wasn't. You know why?" Silence. "Because he refused to quit. Because he had a mission, finding help, and nothing was going to stop him from completing it. Not bullets, not cold, not pain. That's what I'm going to teach you. Not tactics or medical procedures. You've got manuals for that. I'm going to teach you what no manual can teach. How to be the person your dog refuses to quit on." One handler raised his hand. Young kid, maybe 22. "Chief, how do you not freeze when your dog's dying? How do you keep working when you know one wrong move could kill them?" Marcus thought about Ranger bleeding on his cabin floor, about his hands shaking so hard he could barely hold the scissors. You don't not freeze. You freeze. You panic. You're terrified. But you work through it because your dog is depending on you. And dogs don't understand fear or hesitation. They just understand that you're their pack, and pack doesn't give up on pack. Another handler, older, maybe 30. "What about when you fail? When you do everything right and they die anyway?" The question hit like a physical blow. Marcus felt his breath catch. "Then you carry it," he said, his damaged voice rougher now. "You carry that failure for the rest of your life. You wake up at 3 a.m., wondering what you could have done differently. You see their faces. You hear their last sounds. And you have to decide. Does that guilt destroy you? Or does it drive you to make sure no other handler has to feel what you felt?" He paused, looking at each handler. "I had a dog before Ranger. His name was Titan. Best partner I ever had. 6 months ago, we were deployed in Afghanistan. IED took him out. He died protecting me. And for 6 months after that, I wanted to die too. Convinced myself I should have died with him. Spent every day trying to disappear because I didn't think I deserved to live when he didn't." Marcus felt Ranger lean harder against his leg. Then Ranger showed up. And he didn't care that I was broken. Didn't care that I was barely functional. He just needed someone to not quit on him. So I didn't. And somewhere in the process of saving his life, he saved mine. The room was silent. "That's what I'm teaching you. It's not about being perfect. It's about being present. Being the person who doesn't quit even when quitting would be easier. Rodriguez appeared at the door. "Reed, can I see you for a minute?" Outside, she handed him a folder. "What's this?" "Requests. 15 families of handlers who were killed in the last 3 years. They've all asked to meet you and Ranger, to hear what really happened to their loved ones, to thank the people who exposed Preston's operation." Marcus felt his chest tighten. "I can't." "You can, and you will. Because these families deserve the truth. They deserve to know their handlers didn't die for nothing, that their deaths exposed corruption that's now being prosecuted." Rodriguez's voice softened. "Marcus, you're not just teaching handlers. You're giving closure to families who've been living with lies for years." That afternoon, the first family arrived. Captain James Miller's parents. Miller had been killed in Syria 18 months ago. Officially, combat action. Actually, murdered by Preston's people when he got too close to the smuggling operation. Mrs. Miller was in her 60s, eyes red from crying. Mr. Miller stood stiff and military, clearly holding himself together by force of will. "Thank you for seeing us," Mrs. Miller said. We needed to know what really happened to James." Marcus sat with them in Rodriguez's office, Ranger at his feet. "Your son was a good handler, good soldier. He figured out something was wrong with supply shipments, started asking questions, and Preston, the man running the operation, decided that made him a liability. So they killed him," Mr. Miller said flatly. "Yes, sir. Made it look like enemy action. Filed false reports. Your son died a hero, but he died because he was doing his job too well." Mrs. Miller started crying. Mr. Miller put his arm around her. "I'm sorry," Marcus said. "I know that doesn't help. Doesn't bring him back. But your son's death wasn't meaningless. His questions started people looking, started investigations. And Ranger," he gestured to the dog, "Ranger carried evidence that finally brought the whole operation down." "So James's death mattered," Mrs. Miller said through tears. "Yes, ma'am. It mattered." They stayed for an hour, talked about James, about his dog, about the life he'd lived and the legacy he'd left. When they left, Mrs. Miller hugged Marcus. "Thank you. For fighting when you could have walked away. For saving Ranger. For making sure James's death meant something." After they left, Marcus sat alone with Ranger and felt the weight of it all. 12 more families to go," he said. 12 more times I have to tell people their loved ones were murdered. 12 more times I have to see that pain." Ranger pushed his nose into Marcus's hand. "Yeah, I know. It's necessary. Doesn't make it easier." The meetings continued over the next 2 weeks. Each family brought different grief, different questions, different needs. But all of them left with something they'd been missing: the truth. On the 15th day, the last family arrived, and Marcus's world tilted when he saw who it was. Sarah Chen, Michael Chen's sister, the woman who'd helped save Ranger, who'd given Marcus her brother's dog. But she wasn't alone. An older couple stood with her. Michael's parents. "Marcus," Sarah said, "I wanted them to meet you. And Ranger." Michael's mother looked at Ranger with tears streaming down her face. "That's my son's dog. Oh God, he's alive." Ranger, who'd been calm through every other meeting, suddenly whined. His tail started wagging frantically. He pulled toward Mrs. Chen with an urgency Marcus had never seen. "He remembers you," Marcus said, stunned. "I used to visit Michael, at the base, before deployments. I'd bring Ranger treats. Mrs. Chen knelt down, and Ranger practically threw himself into her arms. "He'd always greet me like this." The reunion was beautiful and heartbreaking. Mrs. Chen sobbed in the Ranger's fur, while Mr. Chen stood with his hand on his wife's shoulder, silent tears running down his face. We thought we'd lost everything, Mr. Chen said finally. Our son, his dog, everything he loved. But Ranger's alive, and he's in good hands. The best hands, Sarah said, looking at Marcus. Marcus saved him, kept him alive when Preston's people wanted him dead, fought for him when anyone else would have given up. Mrs. Chen stood, walked to Marcus. Thank you for protecting our son's dog, for giving him a second chance, for... Her voice broke. For being the person Michael would have wanted to save Ranger. Marcus felt his throat close completely. I don't know if I'm that person. I'm just... You're exactly that person, Mr. Chen said. Michael used to talk about handlers like you, SEALs who treated their dogs like brothers, who'd die before they'd abandon their partner. He admired that, aspired to it. Your son was a hero, Marcus managed. He protected Ranger until the end. Tried to expose Preston's operation, even when it put him at risk. Marcus stopped, overwhelmed. Sarah stepped forward. There's something else you should know. Something I found in Michael's belongings. A letter. He wrote it before his last deployment. Instructions for if he didn't come back. She pulled out an envelope, handed it to Marcus. It's addressed to you. Marcus stared at it. To me? But Michael and I never met. Read it. Marcus opened the envelope with shaking hands. The letter inside was dated 6 months ago, a week before the ambush. Chief Marcus Reed, we've never met, but I know who you are. Everyone in the K-9 community knows about Titan and his SEAL, about the team that cleared buildings no one else would touch, about the handler who'd walk through fire for his dog. I'm writing this because there's a chance I won't come back from this deployment. And if I don't, I want Ranger to go to someone who'll understand him, who'll treat him like the warrior he is. There's something wrong with this operation, something that doesn't add up. If I die investigating it, protect Ranger. He knows too much. He's too valuable. Someone will come for him. Give him the life I couldn't. Show him that not all handlers end up like me, that sometimes the good guys actually win. And Reed, don't blame yourself for whatever happens. We both know the risks. We both chose this life. If I die doing what I love, protecting something that matters, that's enough. Semper Fi. Staff Sergeant Michael Chen. Marcus read it 3 times, tears running down his face, his damaged voice completely gone. Michael had known, had predicted this exact scenario, had chosen Marcus specifically to protect Ranger if something happened. How did he know? Marcus whispered. Because you were his hero, Mrs. Chen said. He followed your career, read every after-action report that mentioned you. He used to say, if I can be half the handler Reed is, I'll die happy. Marcus looked at Ranger, at the dog who'd run through a blizzard to find him, who'd chosen him out of everyone in the world to trust. It hadn't been random. It had been Michael's final order, his last mission. He trained Ranger to find you, Sarah said softly. Scent recognition. Your gear, your unit. Michael collected samples, taught Ranger to track you specifically. That's why Ranger ran to your cabin. Not by chance, by training. Jesus, Marcus breathed. My son knew he might die, Mr. Chen said. But he made sure his dog would live, would find the one person who'd fight for him no matter what. He looked Marcus in the eye. You were his contingency plan, his hope. And you didn't let him down. The weight of that revelation settled over Marcus like a blanket made of grief and purpose and something approaching redemption. I won't let him down, Marcus said. I promise. Ranger will have the best life I can give him. I'll make sure Michael's sacrifice meant something." After the Chens left, Marcus sat with Ranger in the empty office. "You crafty bastard," Marcus said, scratching Ranger's ears. "You didn't randomly choose my door. You were on a mission, following orders, completing Michael's last command." Ranger's tail wagged. "That's why you trusted me immediately. Why you looked at me like you knew me. Because Michael taught you to. Prepared you for this exact scenario." Marcus pulled Ranger close, buried his face in the dog's fur. "I'm sorry I didn't know sooner. Sorry I didn't understand. But I get it now. You're not just a dog I saved. You're a mission Michael gave me, a trust he placed in me, and I'm going to honor that trust every single day." 6 months later, Marcus stood in a memorial park, watching the unveiling of a monument. Carved granite listed names of military working dogs killed in action over the past decade. Names Preston had erased or falsified. Names Morrison's investigation had restored. Titan's name was there, and Michael's dog before Ranger, and 17 others whose deaths had been lies covering Preston's crimes. Commander Torres gave a speech about accountability, about justice delayed but not denied. Sarah Chen spoke about her brother and the legacy he'd left. Morrison detailed the prosecutions, 37 people arrested, billions in assets seized, reforms implemented. Then they asked Marcus to speak. He walked to the podium with Ranger at his side, both of them wearing their dress uniforms. Marcus in his Navy service dress blues, Ranger in a custom vest Sarah had commissioned, embroidered with Michael Chen's name and Titan's name side by side. "I'm not good with words," Marcus began, his damaged voice amplified by microphone. "So I'll keep this simple. These dogs," he gestured to the names on the monument, "they died protecting us, protecting secrets, protecting a trust we betrayed when we let corruption hide their deaths." He looked at Ranger. "But they're not forgotten anymore. This monument says their names, says they mattered, says we remember." Marcus pulled out Titan's collar from his pocket. The leather was worn, soft from years of use. He'd carried it every day since Titan died. Now he hung it on the monument, on a hook beneath Titan's name. "I carried this for 6 months thinking it was all I had left, thinking grief was all I deserved. But I was wrong. What I had left wasn't grief. It was responsibility. The responsibility to honor them by living, by fighting, by being the person they believed I was." He looked out at the crowd. Handlers with their dogs, families of the fallen, fellow veterans who understood. Ranger taught me that, not through words, through action. He ran through hell to find me because someone trusted I wouldn't fail him. And that trust, that absolute, unearned trust, it saved my life as surely as I saved his. His voice cracked, but he pushed through. "So I'm standing here today making a promise. To every dog on this monument, to every handler who lost their partner, to every family still grieving, I promise we'll keep fighting, keep training, keep making sure no more names get added to this wall because of corruption or lies, or people who value money over lives." Marcus knelt beside Ranger. "And I promise that this dog, Michael Chen's dog, this warrior who refused to quit, will live the life he deserves, will work with handlers who need him, will show them what loyalty looks like, what trust looks like, what courage looks like when it's wrapped in fur and powered by a heart that won't surrender." The applause was thunderous, but Marcus barely heard it. He was looking at Ranger, who was looking back with those steady amber eyes that had seen so much and still found reasons to hope. After the ceremony, families approached to thank Marcus, to pet Ranger, to share stories about their own dogs. One woman, elderly, handed Marcus a photo. "This was my grandson's dog, killed in Iraq 5 years ago, officially. But after your investigation, we learned the truth. Murdered by contractors. Thank you for giving us that truth, for giving us closure." "I'm sorry for your loss," Marcus said. "Don't be sorry. Be proud. You didn't just save one dog. You saved the truth about hundreds of dogs. Thousands of families now know what really happened to their loved ones. That's worth more than you know." As the crowd dispersed, Rodriguez found Marcus. "Hell of a speech. Didn't know you had it in you."
Neither did I.
"Well, you do. And Marcus, the program you've built here, teaching handlers, training dogs, counseling veterans through their grief, it's changing lives. We've got a waiting list of handlers who want to learn from you. Shelters calling, asking if we can take rescue dogs and train them for therapy work. Veterans groups wanting to partner with us." That's bigger than I expected. That's what happens when you stop hiding and start living. You become the person you were always supposed to be. That night, Marcus sat in his new house, a small place near Fort Carson with a yard big enough for Ranger to run in. Torres was there, helping Marcus hang photos on the walls. Photos of Titan, of Michael Chen, of the canine unit that had died 6 months ago. "You okay?" Torres asked, as Marcus stared at Titan's photo. "Yeah. For the first time in months, yeah. I miss him. Always will. But I'm not drowning in that grief anymore. Ranger kind of pulled me out." Ranger and your own stubborn refusal to quit. Maybe. Marcus hung the last photo, one of him and Ranger taken at the monument dedication. Both of them in uniform. Both of them looking forward instead of back. "Torres, can I ask you something?" "Anything." "Do you still blame yourself for the operation, for what happened?" Torres was quiet for a long moment. "Every day. But I'm learning to carry it differently. Not as punishment, as responsibility. I failed that day, but I can succeed going forward, making sure it never happens again. That's how I honor them." "Yeah, that sounds right." They stood in silence, 2 men who'd lost everything, and somehow found reasons to keep going. Marcus's phone buzzed. Sarah Chen. "Michael's parents want to visit, see Ranger. Is that okay?" Marcus typed back. "More than okay. Tell them to bring his favorite treats. Ranger remembers." He looked at Ranger, sleeping peacefully on his new dog bed, a gift from Mrs. Chen that had belonged to Ranger when Michael was alive. "You know what's crazy?" Marcus said to Torres. 6 months ago, I was alone in a cabin waiting to die. Couldn't imagine a future. Couldn't see past my grief. Now I've got a job, a house, a partner, a purpose. How does that happen?" "A dog showed up at your door and refused to let you quit." "No. A dog showed up at my door because his handler believed I wouldn't quit." Michael Chen had faith in someone I'd stopped believing existed, and somehow that faith became a self-fulfilling prophecy. Torres smiled. "So what now? You've got the job, the house, the memorial. What's next?" Marcus looked at the photos on his wall, at Titan's collar hanging beside them, at Ranger sleeping peacefully, at the future he'd never expected to have. "Now I live. Not just survive, actually live. Wake up every morning and choose to be the person Titan believed I was. The person Michael trusted with his dog. The person Ranger ran through a blizzard to find." That's a hell of a legacy to live up to. "Yeah, but I've got a hell of a partner to help me do it." Ranger's tail thumped in his sleep, like he'd heard and approved. Marcus stood in his new home, surrounded by ghosts who'd become guardians instead of haunts, and felt something he hadn't felt in 6 months. Hope. Not the desperate kind that grasps at anything to avoid pain. The earned kind that comes from surviving the worst and choosing to build something better from the wreckage. He'd been broken. Still was, in some ways. PTSD didn't disappear because you found purpose. The nightmares didn't stop. The shaking hands didn't heal. But he'd learned to function despite them, to live around them, to let them be part of his story without letting them write his ending. And Ranger, beautiful, loyal, impossibly stubborn Ranger, had shown him how. By refusing to quit when quitting would have been easier. By trusting when trust felt impossible. By running toward help instead of away from pain. Marcus Reed had been a Navy SEAL who'd lost everything and hidden in a mountain cabin waiting for the end. But a wounded German shepherd had scratched at his door in the middle of a blizzard and reminded him of something critical. The mission doesn't end when you get broken. It just changes form. And sometimes, the most important missions are the ones that save you while you're trying to save someone else. Now Marcus was a trainer, a guardian, a handler, a survivor, who'd learned that broken things can become stronger when they refuse to stay broken alone. He was Ranger's pack. Ranger was his. And together, they'd built a life worth living from the wreckage of the ones they'd lost. That was enough. That would always be enough. Because some bonds aren't formed by accident. They're forged by choice, tested by fire, and proven by the simple, stubborn refusal to surrender when surrender would be easier. And that bond between a broken SEAL and a wounded dog who ran through hell to find each other was stronger than any trauma, deeper than any grief, and more permanent than any scar.